Joining me now, a prominent criminal defense attorney, Ted Simon, to talk more about these charges. Thank you for your time. I want to start where Allison left off. Politics aside, if we can in this case, because it's highly politically driven, the merits of the case itself and the facts of these charges. Can you lay out the legalities of it?
Yes, I have to commend your correspondent. I think she was referencing something I said earlier, and that is political talking points are not legal points. And one could expect in a matter like this that both sides would have some political commentary. But the reality is every case must be decided on the facts and law that are unique to each case. And what we see here is a long-running investigation that is resolved in a plea agreement. We don't know precisely the terms of the plea agreement. It has not, as far as I know, been filed. What we do know, the U.S. attorney who, and pardon me for the political reference, was a holdover from the Trump administration who reached this plea agreement, he filed a letter with the court requesting a consolidated hearing. That is, typically when someone is charged, they have an initial appearance and later they either have a trial or a plea hearing. He's asking for a consolidated hearing first of both the tax charges and the gun charge, and then with respect to the tax charge, not only an initial appearance, but a change of plea where the person would be pleading guilty. The U.S. attorney also indicates that he will be filing the plea agreement shortly or at the time of the hearing, and at that point we'll be in a better position to evaluate, how fair or not, or how sweet, some have said, or not, this particular arrangement is. My understanding, and this is reported in a major news service, the allegation with regard to the taxes, he had received substantial amount of income, something in excess of $1.5 million in the years 2017 and 2018, but had not paid taxes on more than $100,000 for each of those years. So while these are not insubstantial sums, the amount that's alleged to have not been paid is not that significant when comparing to many other types of cases. The gun charge will not result in an entry of a plea, but will result in what we call a pretrial diversion arrangement. Not every U.S. attorney's office in the United States has these programs, but apparently the District for Delaware does. So he will enter, if the judge agrees with the plea agreement, he will enter that program. He will not have to plead guilty. And if he complies with the terms and conditions of the program, the case will be dropped. I would add, there is some reporting that not only is there a plea to 2 misdemeanor charges and this one diversion on the gun charge, there is some reporting that it's an agreed upon sentence of probation. We don't know that absolutely until we see the terms of the plea agreement. But if it includes a specific term of disposition of what precisely the sentence will be, then that falls into a special category of plea agreements, which technically we call 11C1C, and the court would have to agree not only to accept the plea, but accept the sentence. And then both sides would address the merits of why it's a fair and proper sentence under all the circumstances. So I think as far as the political commentary, I think, folks, you're never going to stop political persons from making commentary on such a matter as this. It's unfortunate in many ways because I think that we need to see more. We need to see what the plea agreement is and then evaluate it on its merits.
Well, you've got the political side and you've got the legal side, and often, at least as of late, the two are intersecting. Thank you for helping us dissect it, Ted Simon. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.